This is section 9, part 9 of the Memoir to 40 autobiography of David Smith. Here we go. Now, the sophomore year ended in the spring of 1976, so I headed to the farm in Willard, Ohio. West of Steuben, Ohio, old lion place with the pond. I found a farm in Monroeville where William Smith and Lawrence Smith and Susan Smith lived. There was a community of satsangs living there. It was a time when he read books like Electric Acid Test by Tom Wolfe, about Ken Kesey and the Magic Bus, about the hippies in California. When I arrived at the farm, I was directed to the old school bus on the farm. The door of the bus swung wide open, and inside was William Smith and Lawrence Smith and Susan Smith, and the bus was overflowing with Kirpal Singh books and tapes. Nowadays, being a vegetarian is common, but back in 1976 in rural Ohio was a brash philosophical statement. I would not be able to hunt woodchucks anymore. I wanted to get initiated, but Kirpal Singh had died in 1974. There was a controversy as to who was the true successor. Was it Ajab, Dhaka, or Darshan? I had to write a letter to Darshan Singh in India to request initiation. I had to write a letter. There was a requirement that you had to be vegetarian for at least 6 months, so I waited for the acceptance to come. I set up a hammock outside the trees, between the trees, by the pond, at the farm in Steuben. I would drive the motorcycle out to the Smith farm in Monroeville for satsang. There were goats on the farm. I remember the intense spiritual radiation during these satsang, listening to Kirpal tapes with the morning talks. There was a health food store in Norwalk run by some Kirpal initiates. The evening of July 10th, 1976, I set up a tent in the woods in Monroeville near William and Susan's trailer in the river. William and Susan Smith drove me the morning of July 11th, 1976 to Chicago. At about 3 a.m. in the morning on July 11th, I woke up and saw shooting stars in the sky. To this day, I don't know if the stars were in my head or actually in the sky. It was in downtown Chicago. I had the initiation at the Theosophy Center with instructions read by Olga Donenberg. This is Olga Donenberg gave this testimony in the Ocean of Grace Divine. Olga Donenberg. At the initiation, there was only one other person there. I gave instructions. I was given instructions of 5 charged mantras for repetition. As I repeated these magic words, I found myself rapidly rising through the tunnel in my head. In the tunnel that all the people who had near-death experiences had talked about. In fact, I was nervous that I was losing my body. Then I remember the quote, "There is nothing to fear but fear itself." They call it happened to be astral projection. It wasn't that I had reached enlightenment, but that enlightenment had reached me. I had a high-speed, flashing life review. Not just a life review, but many lives review. I had flashback to all my past lives, even all the way back to the Big Bang. The bit about there being no time, or that time is relative, was realized. My feeling was that there was a point to all these past experiences that I had evolved to this important moment. Next came the sound current practice, and I put my thumbs in my ears and listened to this very enjoyable sound of the ocean waves. The effect was extremely blissful. Back on the farm in Monroeville, Susan Smith tried to teach me German, as I had I had taken 2 years of German in college. I had to take 2 years. I hurt my back from throwing a cement pick like a javelin. Yes, that was one of the many things that farm boys did back then. For a period of 2 weeks, I stopped eating and fasted. I felt an extreme lightness and felt the speed at which I could rise up to the third eye was greatly accelerated. This was a Camelot, a sweet spot, a high point of my mystical life. I was still young and still free. Had the golden braid thread linked to the profound. Pythagoras' music of the spheres and the lost chord. As a young man driving the tractor, my mind had lots of time to ponder the world, but I felt that everything that people believed was the opposite. Seems a discussion of the path of the masters. My life had become much richer now that I was a stream winner in terms of Buddhism. Next, I hope to become a never-returner. As the glorious summer of 1976 came to an end, I returned to music school, Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music. I went off campus to get away from the beer-drinking barbarians in the dorms. I had a roommate named Myron Lotnensky. My friends included John Little. I had a tape of Myron and me talking where Myron ruminated about his girlfriend and sex life. I continued to go to satsang with Barrett Duffy, Georgine, Carol, David McClanahan, Joni, David's girlfriend, Paul's, his girlfriend's brother. I would take a ride to places like Washington, D.C. for satsang events. T.S. Ghana would be there. I went to a play at Mount Adams in Cincinnati called Heartbreak House by Bernard Shaw. I wrote this first poem in my poetry book. There's the manuscript. Very unreadable. The poem goes like this. The music